Alright, so here is an instructional video on how to play the Cashflow 101 board game by Robert Kiyosaki. So first of all, there's three versions of this game. There is Cashflow 101, Cashflow 202, which is the more advanced version, and then there is a new version that is just simply called Cashflow. Personally, I prefer the older versions of Cashflow 101 and Cashflow 202. So the game, as I mentioned, is created by Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the goal of the game is to help you learn how to invest and create passive income. There's actually two different places that you are playing this game. The first place that you're playing is on the board that you see here. The second place that you participate in the game is what's called an income statement and balance sheet, which we'll talk more about in a little while. So those are the two different parts. You'll see some of the pieces of the game here. So you'll notice every single player has a couple different things. Every single player has a game piece, which is a wrap like this, and a piece of cheese. All right, so the very first thing that you do when you're playing the game is you take your cheese and you put it on one of the dreams, which is any of the pink squares on the outside, and you can read through them. There's protein box seats, there's buy a forest, mini farm in the city, cruise the Mediterranean, just whatever dream that you would like to select. And then you place your rat at the starting point. These right here you're going to use later on in the game, but you can discard them for now. So the game is played in two distinct areas. The first area here is called the rat race, and this represents life with a job. And the second area is called the fast track, and that's the outside circle here. The goal of the first part of the game is to get out of the rat race, to quit your job, and the way that you do that is by having more passive income than what you have for expenses. Once you do that, you don't need a job anymore. The second goal or part of the game is on the fast track, and when you're on the fast track, that's where you want to land on and buy your dream. There's a secondary way to win as well. However, the main goal here is to land on and buy your dream. So essentially your two goals in the game, number one is to create enough passive income to quit your job, and then number two, pursue and buy your dream. So that's the super basic version of how to play the game. I'm going to give you a little bit more of an example here. Now, I mentioned before that the goals of the game was to exit the rat race and purchase your dream. One more important piece is that you want to do that within the time limit. Every time you play the cash flow game, my recommendation is to set a timer for either an hour and a half or for 2 hours, but do not exceed 2 hours. If you cannot get out of the rat race within 2 hours, it means you don't understand the game yet. So you always want to play with a time limit, and essentially you're racing yourself versus the clock. So I'm going to go and explain a couple things here on the board. So once you get started in the game, you'd roll the dice and you move clockwise. So if you rolled and you landed on or past paycheck, then you will receive what your paycheck is. Your paycheck comes from the income statement and balance sheet. So the very first thing you do when you start the game is you take one of these profession cards and you take the information from that card and you move it over onto your income statement and balance sheet, which looks like this. So it looks exactly the same. I'll give you a bit of more details here on this in a minute. But essentially, this is the income statement and balance sheet, and you just want to move all of your information onto this. You want to make sure that you use pencil because you're going to be erasing quite often. So what you'll notice on this income statement, I'll give you an example here. So if you notice on here, we've got income, which is our salary. We also would have any income from any assets like real estate or things like that that we have. Then we see all of our expenses underneath that. So we've got the income column, we've got the expense column. We also have the asset column and the liability column. Every single liability right here will have an corresponding expense. So if you paid off the $31,000 mortgage, your $300 per month mortgage payment would go away. If you paid off your $1,000 retail debt, then your $50 a month retail payment would go away. Okay, so basically all of your income together equals this number right here. All of your expenses together equals this number right here. Your income minus your expenses is your monthly cash flow. It's how much money you have left at the end of each month. So when you land on or pass your paycheck, this is the amount of money that you're going to take from the bank in cash. So that is the paycheck square. You'll also notice that there are red doodad squares. The red doodad squares are things that you can purchase. So this one says, play your lucky lottery number, lose $100. Now, the doodad squares, they are not optional, meaning that when you land on it, you don't have a choice to buy it or not buy it. You have to make the purchase. If you don't have enough money, you can take a loan from the bank at any time, and I'm going to explain that a little bit later in this video. So that's the doodad section. There's also a charity spot and a baby spot and a downsize spot. Those all have instructions right on the square. The majority of what you're going to be doing in the game is small deals, big deals, and market cards. So if you land on one of the green squares like this, it will give you the choice to choose a big deal or a small deal. And I'm going to give some more details of how to actually purchase one of these deals and put it into the balance sheet. But when you land on this square, you can either choose a big deal or a small deal. And essentially, generally speaking, big deals cost $5,000 or more, and small deals are $5,000 or less. So if you have more than $5,000 in front of you, you might want to consider a big deal. If you have less, you should probably be getting a small deal. So an example is a house for sale. 3-2 rental house suddenly available due to real estate closing, well-maintained older property with existing tenant. Use this card yourself or sell to another player. 38% ROI, it may sell for $65,000 to $135,000. Cost $65,000, down pay $5,000, mortgage $60,000, cash flow $160. So we're going to use this as an example in just a moment here, and I'll show you how to actually fill that out into your form. But whenever you land on a card like this, you want to read the card out to the entire group, read it out loud, and then decide whether you'd like to purchase this card or not. So that is something that you'll see inside of the small deals and big deals. The market cards, on the other hand, these cards will affect everyone in the game. So this one says buyer offers $30,000 per unit for all units in any combination of duplexes, fourplexes, or eightplexes. Everyone may sell. So not just the person who drew the card. This represents what the market is doing, meaning that if you have a duplex right now that you bought for $40,000, you can now sell it for $60,000 because it's a duplex. That means there's 2 units and they're $30,000 each. So 30,000 plus 30,000 is 60,000, which would be the selling price. If you want to sell, you get rid of the cash flow you're receiving from the property and you pay down whatever you owe left on the mortgage. So that is the market cards. I'm going to show you how to fill these out on the income statement and balance sheet. All right, so here we are with the income statement and balance sheet. Income statement is just the income and expenses. Balance sheet is assets and liabilities. And then this over here is actually called the statement of cash flow. So essentially, you're going to start the game by taking one of these profession cards. This one's a mechanic. And we're just going to transfer all the information over. So we'll type the profession, your name, the auditor is the person to your right, and then we'll just transfer all this information over. So right now we have a salary of $2,000. So we don't have any other income types to start the game. So all of the income types together added up equals your total income, which is $2,000. Over here we have our expenses. So we'll just transfer this over. 360, 300, 0, 60, 60, 50, and 450. And all these add up together to be 1,280. Our total income minus our total expenses is our monthly cash flow. This is what we have left at the end of each month, which is $720. This is also the number that you're going to get every time you land on or pass paycheck. We're going to write in our savings. As soon as you start the game, you're going to actually erase this number and take this in cash. And then we have our liabilities. So we've got a mortgage of $3,100. You might notice that this mortgage has an existing payment of $300 per month. Same thing with our car loan, credit card debt, and retail debt. Now, if I was to pay off this retail debt and pay off the full $1,000, I would pay $1,000 to the bank, and then I would erase my retail payment of $50. That would become zero. That would mean my expenses would go down by $50. And now when I go income minus expenses, my monthly cash flow actually goes up by $50. So I'm keeping more money every single month. So the goal of the game, of course, is to get your passive income to become greater than your expenses. One way to do that is to increase your passive income. Another way to do that, or to assist in that, is by decreasing your expenses by paying off liabilities over here. So I'm going to give you a couple of different examples of how that you would do this. So we're going to start with this card right here. So this card's a house for sale. And I'm going to show you how you would enter this. All of the different numbers on here have somewhere to go on the income statement. So we're going to start off by going down to the bottom here, and we're going to type in 3-bedroom, 2-bath, which is what it says right here, home. Our down payment is going to be $5,000, and we're going to say that I had that $5,000 cash and I paid it to the bank. Our total cost is going to be $65,000. So 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, our asset is the $5,000 down payment and the $65,000 cost. The liability is the mortgage that we owe. So we're going to write down 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And the mortgage over here is $60,000. Okay. From there, I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to write 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And the cash flow here is $160. And so what that $160 represents, or what that means, is we've got this mortgage payment here of $60,000. Some people say, well, what about the mortgage payment? Well, what this card is saying is that we're renting this house out, and the tenants of the house are paying whatever the monthly payment is on the mortgage and all the bills. And after that, we're left with $160, meaning that the rent covers all of our expenses plus $160. So we're going to write plus $160 right here. Our total income now goes up by $160. And our monthly cash flow goes up by $160. So now every time we pass or land on paycheck, we're going to get $930. Our monthly cash flow has gone up. Our passive income is now $160. Once this number exceeds our expenses, we have finished the first part of the game. So that's the first card. I'm going to show you a second card here. And this one is Mighty for You Electronics. I'm going to show you two different things on this card. The first is how to buy a stock, and the second is how to take a loan. I mentioned earlier you can take a loan from the bank at any time. You must take loans in $1,000 increments, and your interest payment is 10% per month, which is 120% per year. So let's say I'm going to take a $1,000 loan over here. I'll put that into the bottom. My loan payment now becomes 10% of my 1,000. So for every $1,000 you borrow, it's $100 per month. My total expenses now go up, which means my monthly cash flow goes down. All right, so I've now successfully taken a loan. Now we're going to say that I'm taking that $1,000 and I'm using it to buy this stock. So the stock is MYT for you. Number of shares, well, it's $10 per share, and I've just spent $1,000. So that means I have 100 shares. at $10 each. And that's it. So now these shares stay in my asset column. If I had cash, I wouldn't have had to take this loan. I would have just used cash to buy these, but we're assuming that I took money to borrow from these. Now, how do you make money from stocks? Because it says right on the card that the ROI is 0%. And what that means is I'm not getting a monthly dividend from this. So I'm buying it low, hoping to sell it high. So let's say we're playing the game a little bit longer and another card comes up. This time it says, mighty for you, booming market leads to record share price of this home electronics seller. Only you may buy, everyone may sell. So what that means is if I'm an owner of this stock, which I am, I can now sell it for the price of $40 per share, even if I'm not the person who pulled this card. So only the person who pulled this card can buy at 40, but anyone at the table can sell. So I'm going to say that I want to sell all of my shares. I could have sold a portion, but I'm going to sell all of them. So 100 shares at $40 each means that I get $4,000 from the bank. And the bank, I erase these shares. Essentially, the bank is buying the shares from me. And now I have $4,000. If I wanted to, I could use some of that money to pay off my loan, which would in turn erase my payment. This would go down and this would go up. Okay, so now I've got $4,000 in my pocket. How do you sell your houses? Well, your houses actually get sold through the market cards, these blue ones. So this one here says, actually, this is a bad example, but some of them will say they'll all have a different amount. So normally it would say you can sell this for $50,000. You can sell it for $100,000. So let's say a card came up and said you could sell it for $100,000. If that's the case, what I would do is I would say, yes, I'm going to sell this. And I would take $100,000 minus whatever my mortgage is. So I still owe $60,000 on the mortgage. And this number never changes. It always stays the same. We're assuming that you're paying only interest on these loans. It's not going down every month. Okay, so I would take $100,000. I would minus this $60,000, which means I would take $40,000 profit from the bank. So I'd go ahead and get that money from the bank. It also means that I need to erase everything to do with this home because I've now sold it. So I lose my $160 over here. So this 160 goes away, it's now 0. This 160 now goes away, is now 0. So this is back to 2,000. And then this goes down by 160. So it should be 670, I believe. And I've now completed that transaction. On the other hand, sometimes market cards are bad. So I could have got something like this one that says, hey, inflation goes to 10% and interest rates climb to 20%. You just lost your 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and you get nothing for it. Okay, so market cards can go either way. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative. The bottom line is this game is going to teach you to grow your financial intelligence, to allow you to practice these things a few times over, and most importantly, get used to this income statement and balance sheet and start to control your emotions when it comes to money. So that is the cash flow game in a nutshell. It's a quick version here of what to do to get yourself started and to get playing. And I really recommend that you play this game at least once a month. Kiyosaki challenges you to play once a month for a year. And it's a really great idea to change some of your thinking around money and mostly to change your habits. It's not about there's some lessons you need to learn. It's that there's habits that you need to create and change. And for most of us, I mean, I was taught to go to school, get good grades, save money, hopefully retire by the time I'm 65. And that was, put into my head over and over and over for 18 years. So it's not just going to be that I read one book and all of a sudden 18 years of programming is gone. It takes time to develop new habits, and that's what this game is really phenomenal at. So Underneath this video, there's a quick link if you'd like some further tips about how to win the game, how to get out of the rat race faster. I've provided some tips there, and they apply to the game, and a lot of them apply as well to real life. So go ahead and you can enter your email by clicking on that, and I'll be happy to send you some additional videos. Outside of that, I really hope that this tutorial has been helpful for you, and most of all, I hope that you really enjoy the game and play it on a consistent basis. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you soon.